In the summer of 1997, the quiet town of Ravenwood sat tucked away in the green folds of Oregon's countryside, where nothing much ever happened. People knew each other by name, and the loudest disturbance was usually the church bells on Sunday morning. That was why the sudden fascination with the abandoned Ravenwood Hotel felt so out of place. The building had stood for decades, a looming shadow on the edge of town, its windows dark and its wooden walls curling with age. Teenagers dared each other to go inside, but most stayed away, claiming they heard strange noises drifting from the upper floors at night. One humid evening, a group of urban explorers arrived from out of town, armed with cameras and flashlights. They pushed through the warped front doors, stepping into a lobby that smelled of mildew and forgotten time. Dust swirled in the air like ash. As they climbed the creaking staircase, they noticed something odd. The layout didn't match what they had seen from the outside. The second floor appeared shorter, like a section of the hallway had been swallowed by the wall. Curiosity pulled them closer. One of them leaned against a warped section of plaster, and the wall cracked under his weight. Behind it was a narrow, hidden doorway, the wood swollen and splintered from years of neglect. They forced it open, the hinges screaming in protest, revealing a room untouched for nearly 2 decades. A heavy stillness hung inside. Furniture sat where it had been left, covered in thick layers of dust. Plates with long-decayed food rested on the table, and a wall calendar marked November 1978. On the table lay a stack of missing persons posters, the faces worn but unmistakable. The explorers recognized some from the faded flyers still pinned to the bulletin board at the local grocery store. The police arrived within the hour, their flashlights cutting through the stale air as they photographed every inch of the strange hidden room. Among the dust and decay, one object stood out, a weathered leather-bound diary resting beside the stack of missing persons posters. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed, and a faint smell of mold clung to it. When investigators opened it, they found neat, deliberate handwriting on every page, each dated between the spring of 1977 and late autumn of 1978. The author was identified as Edward K. Lorne, a drifter who had once been hired as a handyman at the hotel. His entries started innocently, describing maintenance work and quiet evenings spent in the empty corridors. But within weeks, his tone shifted. He wrote about special guests who stayed in the secret room, claiming they were chosen because they needed to be kept safe from the outside world. The language became more unsettling with each page, describing how he provided them food, locked the door each night, and listened to them cry. Edward referred to an unnamed woman throughout the diary. Sometimes she was described as kind and watchful, other times as terrifying and unpredictable. He wrote that she gave him instructions, that she told him who to bring into the room and when. By late 1978, the entries grew frantic. He mentioned strange noises in the walls, shadows moving when no one was there, and a constant feeling of being watched. The final entry was dated November 12, 1978, the same month the hotel abruptly shut down and its owner vanished. In a shaky scrawl, Edward wrote only a single sentence, *, she's coming for me tonight. I can hear her steps. * After that, the pages were blank, as if whatever happened next had silenced him forever. Beneath the warped wooden floor of the hidden room, investigators found something they hadn't expected. One officer's boot caught on a section of the floor that gave a hollow thud when stepped on. After carefully prying away the dusty boards, they uncovered a square trapdoor with a rusted iron handle. The hinges groaned as it was pulled open, releasing a heavy breath of cold, stale air from below. A narrow ladder descended into pitch-black darkness. The smell grew stronger the further they went, an oppressive mix of rust, damp earth, and something faintly sour. At the bottom was a cramped basement, its walls built from old stone and reinforced with rotting beams. The beam above the entrance was carved with dozens of small, deep scratches, as though someone had clawed at it for years. Lining the damp floor were dozens of metal cages, each large enough to hold a person. The cages were corroded with rust, their doors bent in odd shapes, as if someone had tried to force their way out. Inside lay personal belongings scattered like forgotten offerings, necklaces, broken watches, a child's small shoe, even a cracked pair of glasses. One cage in particular caught their attention. Unlike the others, it was clean. The bars bore fresh gouges in the metal, deep and jagged, and the thin blanket inside looked recently disturbed. Forensics noted an eerie detail. The entire basement was coated in thick dust and cobwebs, except for that single cage, which looked as though it had been touched within days. No footprints or fingerprints were found, and no signs of forced entry existed. It was as if someone, or something, had been inside the locked basement long after the hotel was abandoned, moving only in that one cage while the rest of the place decayed around it. Detective Carl Winton had been with the Ravenwood Police Department for over 15 years, and nothing in his career had unsettled him like the discovery in the old hotel. He took the lead on the case, poring over the diary entries, the cage evidence, and every missing persons file that matched the faces in the hidden room. He spent hours in the station's archive room, cross-referencing dates from Edward Lorne's notes with local reports, slowly piecing together a disturbing pattern. Colleagues began to notice his change in demeanor. Carl stopped socializing, rarely went home, and spent late nights at his desk surrounded by photographs of the victims. He requested access to sealed hotel records from 1978, claiming they held the key to understanding what happened. When the records finally arrived, he studied them for 3 straight days without leaving the station. On the morning of July 14th, he told a fellow officer he had made a breakthrough. He said he finally knew what she was, and why Edward had obeyed her. He promised to share everything the following evening. That night, Carl never came home. His car was found parked at the edge of the overgrown driveway leading to the Ravenwood Hotel. The keys were still in the ignition, and the driver's seat was adjusted perfectly to his height. Inside the hidden room, police found his badge placed neatly on the table beside the leather-bound diary. The diary was open to a fresh page, one that hadn't been there before. The ink was still dark and unblemished, and the handwriting matched Carl's perfectly. The message was brief, chilling, and offered no explanation. She's with me now. I understand why he stayed. After that, Carl Winton was never seen again, and no trace of him was found outside that room. Years passed, and the Ravenwood Hotel continued to rot in silence, its windows collapsing inward, its roof sagging under the weight of time. By 2008, the property was sold to a development company planning to tear it down and replace it with luxury apartments. The demolition began on a cold October morning. Crews worked methodically, starting with the outer walls, but by the second week, their equipment struck something unexpected. Beneath the hotel's foundation lay a concrete-lined tunnel, its narrow passage stretching away into darkness. The workers reported the find, and authorities took over. The tunnel ran nearly a mile, its walls slick with moisture, the air cold enough to see one's breath. At the end stood a heavy steel door, its surface pitted with rust, but the bolts securing it were clean, as if they had been handled recently. When the door was forced open, the beam of the first flashlight revealed a chamber far larger than expected. Every inch of the walls was covered in photographs, thousands of them, each showing the face of a missing person tied to the Ravenwood case. The images spanned decades, from faded black-and-white portraits to sharp, modern prints. And there, among them, was a photo of Detective Carl Winton, taken after the date of his disappearance. But one detail froze everyone in place. The last photograph, pinned neatly in the center of the far wall, was printed in full color. It showed the entire demolition crew standing in front of the Ravenwood Hotel, smiling at the camera. The image was crisp, taken only weeks before, yet no one in the crew remembered anyone taking their picture. The chamber was sealed again that same night, but whispers spread quickly through town, about the door, the photographs, and the question no one could answer: who was still watching?